Welcome to NWA Cane Corso's podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another show on NWA Cane Corsos. I'm your host, Joe. We're back with a part 2 with our friend Alexander Gonta. Good to see you. Anything new in your world?
Good to see you. No, I enjoyed the broadcast so much last time that I figured I'll come back, and thanks for inviting me. And I wanted to go over in today's broadcast, if you don't mind. We talked about last time how the coefficient of inbreeding can be used to make judicious decisions in breeding to prevent inbreeding too far, yet maintain desirable traits. So the question becomes, well, okay, we understand it conceptually. Can you show us examples of that step by step by step? And can you explain exactly what you meant with your own planned breedings, which I'm going to show what I'm going to do to create a line of dogs. And I'm going to explain what other people did, because what better way to show this system than to show it by examples of other people who have done it in the past and are doing it today. So I wanted to create a part 2 to the earlier video where we're going to do this conversation as a kind of a educational multi-step process. The first step of the process is I'm going to show people how to read a pedigree, because a lot of people think they know how to read a pedigree, but actually they don't know how to read a pedigree, and they think they know how to read a pedigree, but they really don't. So the first thing is, before you're talking about line breeding of dogs, you have to say, well, why am I choosing these specific dogs? Like, I'm line breeding in a specific dog or dogs, let's say multiple dogs, but why these dogs? Why not some other dogs? Because even if you do line breeding, let's say we're going to talk about 3-3 line breeding, 3-4, 2-3, these terms will become familiar to the viewer as they watch the video. You're no good if the individual dogs in front of you are crap. In other words, you could have a dog which represents a 2-3 line breeding, which is a pretty powerful line breeding. For those who don't know, 2-3 means uncle to half niece. 3-2 means the opposite, aunt to half nephew, not full nephew, half nephew. So 3-2 and 2-3 are two sides of the same coin. The number on the left is the male, the number on the right is the female. So 2 means the male, which is the common ancestor, is a father of that dog. 2 is on the left, that's the male. 3 is the female part of the pedigree. So he's a grandfather of the female, but a father of the male. If the numbers are reversed, let me see my camera. Okay. If the numbers are reversed, if 3 is on the left, that means he's a grandfather of the male, but a father of the female. So you have to understand what 2-3 means, or 3-2. In other words, it's the same mathematical equation, but you must understand, well, what does that mean? What does 3-4 mean versus 4-3? So 3-4 means he's a grandfather of the male, but a great-grandfather of the female. What does 4-3 mean? It's the same thing, but the opposite. He's a great-grandfather of the male, but a grandfather of the female. And there's the left is the male, the right is the female. So let's say 1-2 was the number. 1 is the dog itself, which is the father. 2 means that's his daughter. So 1-2 represents a father to daughter breeding. 1-3 means father to granddaughter breeding. Or let's say it's flipped. Let's say it's 3-1. 3 means the grandfather to her grandson. So 3-1 versus 1-3, it's biologically the same, but you have to understand what is the sex of the parent. Is it the grandfather to granddaughter, or is it the grandson to grandmother? It doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of coefficient of inbreeding, because if you remember simple math, A plus B equals B plus A. 3 plus 5 is 5 plus 3. In other words,
right.
Switching the numbers around doesn't change anything. But for the sake of understanding pedigrees, it matters, and we're going to demonstrate that. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break down how to read a pedigree, step 1. I'm going to show the arithmetic of how to calculate it to understand what you're looking at. I'm going to actually show the arithmetic. And then I'm going to show examples And then I'm going to show how I'm planning a breeding on my own to show what I'm going to do. So that will be the sequence that we're going to cover.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sounds good?
Right.
All right. So the first thing we got to do, let me see how I can share the screen. How do I share a specific page? Let me see. Present.
Yeah.
Slides. Okay. Your computer. Let me see if I do it right. 1 second. Present.
So basically,
Share
what we're going to
screen.
do is a pedigree analysis, right?
Yeah. First, we're going to show pedigree analysis of certain dogs. We're going to just show them one by one.
Okay.
To understand what they mean, and then we're going to show it. I'm going to show a couple of pedigrees first, and then we're going to explain them one by one. Okay.
Okay.
So the first pedigree I want you to look at is this dog. His name is. This is a recent dog, 2022. So this is quite a young dog.
Hold
Now,
on 1 second.
This is a very interesting pedigree for the student pedigrees. Yeah.
Okay. Now it's like it's popping
Sure.
up. There we go. Okay. Gotcha.
It's working.
Now,
Or
I
there's
think
a
your
glitch?
internet was it was glitching a little bit, but I think we're back there now. So
Can you see it? Or because I'm not sure.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. Yes, sir.
You can see it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So notice, obviously, this is a working male. Okay. I wasn't sure. Now, notice the pedigree. This is a very interesting pedigree for the student of pedigrees. So notice it says 4, 5 dash 4, 5 on this dog, Gwen Grafenthal, Schutzen 3. Now, before 2012, it was called Schutzen 3. After 2012, it was called IPO. And then after it was called IPO, it was called IGP. So just so you know what Schutzen 3 means, okay?
Right.
Now, notice an interesting phenomenon. I want you to pay attention. Notice the Wright's coefficient of inbreeding is 0.83%. But notice the Hardyman's coefficient of inbreeding is much higher at 7.03%. Notice this pattern repeats itself several times. Notice the Wright number, 0.42%, which is hardly anything. But notice Hardyman's number is 5.47%, and so forth and so on. Notice that these are very small numbers, not even 1%. And these are much bigger. And the question becomes, well, why is the Hardyman number so much bigger than the Wright number? Which number do I trust? And who's more accurate? Who's right? The answer is Hardyman is right, not Wright. And the reason for that is because in Wright's equation, which was written in 1922, we discussed them in the last video, he doesn't go back to that ancestor more than once. In other words, he's using ancestor pattern of back to a common ancestor. Once he draws a line to that ancestor, he doesn't draw that line more than once. So in other words, he counts that ancestor once. Wright counts him, the dog in question. If you trace him several times, several paths to him, you count every time you have a path.
Okay.
In Wright's equation, you cross the common ancestor, which in this case is a great-grandfather and a great-great-great-grandfather. In other words, 4 generations back, he's a great-grandfather, but he's also a great-grandfather. So in this dog, in his father, remember the number on the left is the father, he's already a 4-5, meaning in that dog's father, this great-grandfather is also a great-grandfather. So he's a grandfather of the father and a great-great-grandfather of the mother. But in his mother, the same thing happened. So this is not inbreeding. This is line breeding. In other words, notice this dog is far back in the past. In other words, he's both in the 4th and 5th generation twice on the male and the female. So this was not by accident this pedigree happened. This was a lot of planning to make this pedigree happen. And what I wanted to say is that people often ask is how much time it takes to develop a line and how much time it takes to develop a breed. Well, to develop a line, clearly this is line breeding, right? And multiple ancestors, not just one. This took 8 years, clearly, because 4 generations, that's 2 years of age each dog, times 4 generations. 4 times 2 is 8. This is the 5th generation, so that's 10. This dog took 10 years to make this pedigree. So the line breeding in this generation numbers involved, that whoever had these dogs, which I'm going to go into them in a minute, this happened over the 10-year time period. So it takes 6 to 8 years, sometimes as much as 10 years to develop a line, and it takes about 20 years to develop a new breed until it breeds true. So in case anybody was wondering that, this demonstrates that. So this is something you inadvertently learn as a consequence of reading this pedigree. 5 generations. See that? Now, one of the things I wanted to demonstrate is notice that these numbers are on the left, and notice this number is tabbed in below these numbers. Notice how these are directly the numbers. You see that?
Yeah.
Right over here you have a tab stop, like this is below that, right?
Right.
And the question is why? What does this mean versus, like, what does this 5-5 mean here when it's tabbed in like that versus this 5-5 here when it's not tabbed in? Like, what is the difference in genetic influence between this 5-5? This looks like 1/2 to the 5th power twice, and this looks like 1/2 to the 5th power twice. Like, what's the difference? And notice this is 5, right? What is the difference between having it tabbed in and not having it tabbed in? If we go to this pedigree, I'm going to switch screen. Let me switch later screen. Hold on.
Okay.
If I switch screens, does it switch for you? Or I have to manually select it.
You probably have to.
Okay, let me see if I switch to the right. Okay, let me switch to another screen. 1 second.
Okay.
How do I switch to the next screen? Oh, okay. Stop screen. And then I gotta share another screen. Okay, if I switch myself, it doesn't do that. Okay. No problem. So we'll go share screen. We're gonna go Abigail of Longworth. Okay. All right. It should come up any moment. Let me know when it does.
I think it's coming up now.
It's a little slow because of all the commercials playing. All right. Now, remember I mentioned Longworth kennels. Can you guys see it or not yet?
Not yet. It's still loading. Longworth kennels.
All these commercials playing slows down the video. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Not
can you
yet.
Guys see this screen?
It's buffering. Now it showed up.
Now it showed up? Okay, so we got to be patient with it. Okay. You definitely can see it, right?
Yep. I see line breeding 5 generations. Yes, sir.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so notice Mr. Longworth of the bracket formula. We discussed bracket formula last time.
Yes.
And he had the Longworth kennel, which produced 90 champions in 10 years. RAM, I remember what RAM is, Register of
Merit.
So notice this is a RAM dog, RAM, Register of Merit. Notice it's at SGR, Seeger, 1930, Register of Merit. This was a big champion. In other words, this was like the champion in 1937, okay? Which is a long time ago, but it is what it is. This is who the dog was. Now, so this pedigree is 2 powerful ancestors which made up this dog. Nix of Longworth, we'll click on that in a minute, and Pfeiffer von Bern. Now notice, forget about rights because he's not right. Focus on the Hardyman numbers. Those are correct, okay? What the right coefficient really means is how many homogeneous allele pairs you have, not the actual coefficient of inbreeding. Because he crossed through that ancestor only once. He doesn't allow it crossing through that line twice. Also, Hardyman limits the pedigree to 5 generations and no more, and Wright has no limit on the number of generations in the past. So that is the difference between Hardyman and Wright. So just ignore this for a minute. It's the old calculation. It's not really valid, not really accurate. Hardyman is really the accurate number. Now, Notice that he says the coefficient of inbreeding is 9.96%, almost 10%. So this dog is a coefficient of inbreeding of 10%, which means he has a coefficient of relationship of almost 40%. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Notice this dog is 6.45%. Now remember, first cousins is 6.25. These are not big numbers, but you remember your scale is half siblings is 12.5%. That's
Right.
the upper number that you want to be below. In other words, full siblings or parent to child, it'll be 25%. That's very dangerous, right? You don't want to be at that number. We're not doing inbreeding here. We're doing line breeding. And half siblings is 12.5%. That's inbreeding. That's not line breeding. So the first question is, where is the line between inbreeding and inbreeding? The line is anything below half siblings is line breeding, and anything half siblings or above is inbreeding. In other words, where do you draw the line in terms of the one and the other, right? So first cousins, which would be 3-3, not 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
This would be 6.25%. But this is an aunt to nephew mating. In other words, this dog's male dog, the male dog's grandfather, okay, the male dog's grandfather is the female dog's father. So this is an auntie to nephew mating, and represents 9.96% COI.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get into that. Now, this dog, Pfeiffer von Bern, is 6.25%. So this is a line breeding, and these two powerful dogs. In the first case, he uses 3-2, or the equivalent will be 2-3. The sire of the sire is the grandsire of the dam, and this is the opposite version. Let the grandsire of the sire be the sire of the dam, and it's the opposite way. Okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you click on this dog's photograph, if this site, oh, it doesn't have a photograph. This dog is from 1953, so they don't have a photograph. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I wish they did, but they don't. But what you will see, let's click on this dog, which is the common dog first.
Okay.
This dog, let's just wait for this to load. It's going to be a little slow.
Yeah.
So how do you see the effects of line breeding? Well, you look at it by actual examples. That's what I'm showing. Is it still showing the screen, Joe?
It is. It's switched over
it's
now.
probably slow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I see the dog now. Champion Ninks of Longworth.
Is it showing? It's
Yes,
showing?
sir. Yeah.
It's showing now?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You see it? Yeah. Right. So this female is the grandmother of the male and the mother of the female. So her grandson was bred to her daughter. Her grandson was bred to her daughter. That's what 3-2 means.
Mm-hmm.
So you're repeating her. Now, and then she herself is line bred. See?
Mm-hmm.
4-4, 5-5. So getting back to the question I posed earlier, let me go back a step. We just wait. This site is very slow.
Yeah.
Let me know when it comes up, Joe, because I don't know if the people can see or not yet.
You're back to it. So yeah, we good.
Let me know when it comes up.
You're good.
It's moving around a little bit. It's buffering. Just give it a chance.
Okay. Yeah.
Pedigree database is a real slow site because of all the commercials on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kicking around.
Back. Okay, I'm gonna go slowly, scroll slowly because otherwise it's gonna confuse us. Okay. Now, so what are we saying in this pedigree? Notice we have 3-2, then we have a tab stop 4-3, and below that we have a tab stop. It's kicking around, but is it stable now, or is it still jerking around?
You're good.
It's buffering. I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna touch it with my mouse in order for it to stabilize.
Okay.
Let me know when it stabilizes.
It's stabilized. I think we have a lag. Yes, sir. I think we have a lag. I can hear you, but I think you get my message a little late.
A little bit of a lag. All right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. Is the video stabilized or not yet?
It's stabilized. We're good to go.
Did the video stabilize? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing in a second, not to have everybody frustrated with the video. But
Okay.
anyhow, so notice a couple of things. Notice this 3-2. Notice we have an indent 4-3, and then we have another indent 4-3. Right? You see that?
Yeah.
And then below that we have 5-4, 5-4, and then below that we have 5-4, 5-4. Everybody see that?
Hmm.
Or not yet?
We see it.
Please let me know if you can see it or not, because I'm not sure what people can see or not.
We see it.
You see
I'm
it?
lagging.
Okay.
Mhm.
So what is this? It's lagging, but you can see it though, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what does this mean? When you have for those of you who remember the old typewriters, the old IBM Selectrics, remember how you had to move and create tab stops when you were putting a piece of paper into the typewriter? Remember, you had to pre-indent your tab stops. Remember those old
Right.
typewriters?
Hmm.
Anyhow, the tab stops below the 3-2 are the parents and grandparents of that female I just showed you. In other words, you're line breeding on her, but you can't help but also line breed on her parents and grandparents because they make up who she is. So it's an incidental line breeding. In other words, by choosing her, let me stop sharing for a second because otherwise it's gonna cause issues. Hold on. All right, did I stop sharing? Is it more clear now?
Yeah, I
Or
can
not
see
yet?
it now. Yeah, I could. Everything's good.
Okay.
Now you
All right.
clearing up.
So
Yeah,
I
it was a
think the
lag
computer's a
going
little
on. Yeah.
yeah, because the website has so many commercials. It's like even my own machine is freezing. Forget about
Oh.
over a live
Okay.
stream. So
Yeah.
yeah, let me explain it verbally because I think people will follow. So now, let's say I have. Let me make the camera right because I don't think people can see my hand. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm getting used to where the camera is. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say I have a 3-2 in the pedigree, right? Now, a dog has what? A dog like us has parents and grandparents, and their parents have parents and so forth, right? In other words, you have parents, they have parents, those dogs had parents. So every generation has its own parents, right?
Hmm.
So when I'm line breeding on this particular dog, I'm therefore also line breeding on that dog's parents and grandparents, right?
Right.
So when you see the tab stop, that is an indirect line breeding. In other words, it's an indirect consequence of breeding on that particular dog. And by choosing that dog to line breed upon, I am therefore, whether I like it or not, because it's how biology works, I'm line breeding and its parents or grandparents. So when you see one tab stop in, those are the dog's parents. That's why you see it twice in the pedigree. Three. So if you have 3-4, in other words, the dog is 2-3, the parents would be 3-4. Where you have a 2, you have a 3, one generation back. Where you have a 3, you have a 4. This 3 generations with one ancestor back is 4 generations back,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Then the generation before that would be 5. In other words, you see both parents as, if it's 2-3 on top for this dog, you will see that's 3-4 on her father and 3-4 on her mother. But on her mother, you will see her mother and her father, which are her grandparents, and on her father you'll see it again. In other words, the first tab stop are her parents. The second tab stop in are her grandparents. So that when you see tab stops in the pedigree, those are the parents of the dog you're inbreeding upon. Now, when you don't see tab stops and you see the numbers right in line in the first column, those are by choice you're line breeding to those dogs, not indirectly as a consequence of them being parents of the dog you chose. In other words, if I see 5-5 right below 2-3, right below 4-5, whatever the numbers in the left-hand column, then the breeder deliberately selected those dogs to be part of the line breeding formula.
Hmm.
When I see 5-5 in a tab stop, tabbed in, that dog is indirectly a 5-5 as a consequence of being a great grandparent of the dog involved on top. Now,
Gotcha.
so the effects of inbreeding are cumulative. Remember the equation sigma equals 1/2 to the n times 1 plus FA?
Yes.
FA is the correction factor. In other words, if you remember that dog I showed you she was the 2-3 mother on one side and the grandmother on the other side, but she herself was a 4-4. So let's define all these words because people are getting numbers thrown at them and they're getting crazy with numbers. Let's explain it first.
Okay.
2-2 is half siblings. 2-2 is half siblings. 3-3 is first cousins. 4-4 is second cousins. 5-5 is third cousins. So I'm going to repeat. 2-2 is half siblings. 3-3 is first cousins.
Okay.
4-4 are second cousins. 5-5 are third cousins. Okay, so everybody good? Now, what are the other combinations people are going to see? People are going to see 2-3, that's uncle to niece. 3-2, aunt to nephew. That's the other combination. What other combinations are possible? 3-4, as opposed to 4-4 or 3-4. Now, what does that mean? It's not quite first cousins, but it's not quite second cousins. It's closer to being first cousins than 4-4 is, but it's not quite first cousins, which is 3-3.
Okay.
So when I throw these numbers at you, understand what these numbers are. Okay. Now, so the question becomes before us: how do you plan a breeding? And why did you see in the first dog? If you remember the first dog I showed you, he was 4-5, 4-5, and he was a couple of fives in a row, a couple of fives in a row on another dog, a couple of fives in a row on another dog. What was the breeder trying to accomplish? So let me share my screen, and it'll become obvious once I share my screen. Let me just make sure I bring up the right thing on my screen. Let me share my screen again, and I'm going to explain it because I'm explaining why the pedigree was done the way it was done, okay? Because you look at this pedigree, see all these numbers, I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
And what did the person try to accomplish exactly? And what was the logic that that person was trying to do? So let me just share the screen.
And thanks for breaking that down, Alexander.
Oh, of course.
People
of
are going
course.
to appreciate that.
Of course, of course. So let me make sure. How do I add this document?
Present.
Entire screen. I'm going to share entire screen.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll work better.
Here we go.
Does it share right?
I
think that'll be better. Okay. Does everybody see this little equation thing on the bottom or not yet? I don't know if you can.
We all can see it. Yes, sir.
You can see it? Okay. Notice what I wrote. I wrote 1/2 squared plus 1/2 squared equals 1/4 plus 1/4, which is 2/4, which is 1/2, which is 50%, which is half siblings. So far, so good. Now we're gonna write the traditional ones out that people can follow easily. 1/2 cubed plus 1/2. I'm gonna explain this to you so you can follow what the breeder tried to do.
Okay.
Which is 1/8. Well, I'm not gonna write it. Plus 1/8, which equals 2/8, which equals 1/4, which equals 25%, which is half first cousins. Everybody see what I just wrote here?
Yes.
I think I need a break here. Does that create a break?
Yes, it does.
No, it didn't. It's just writing everything together. It's smooshing everything together. All right, let me see. Would that work better? Okay, so now
I see half first cousins.
Okay, so 1/2 cube plus 1/2 cube is 1/8 plus 1/8, which is 2/8, which is 1/4, which is 25%, which is half first cousins. Okay, everybody good on that, right?
We're good.
Now we're gonna do second cousins. The only way to follow math is actually to write it out, because people can't follow it just verbally, because it's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody can follow that? 1/2 to the fourth plus 1/2 to the fourth is 1/16 plus 1/16, which is 2/16, which is 1/8. If you convert 1/8 into a percent, it's 12.5%. If anybody is having a little trouble keeping up, put the video on pause, punch it into a calculator, and then put the video back to play. Okay. If you need a little help by using a calculator, that's fine.
Right.
All right, everybody cool with that? Okay.
Yep.
Now we're going to do third cousins. Everybody cool with that?
Third cousin.
1/2 of the third cousins is only 3.25%. Now, will this create prepotency? No, because the common ancestor is 5 generations back. It's too far back to have an influence.
Okay.
Will 1/2 to the fourth create prepotency? No. So the first question is, what combinations will create prepotency?
Okay.
So now, for those who didn't watch the first video, prepotency means you have a lot of homogeneous genes, and you pass yourself no matter what you're bred to. In other words, let's say we're not, now for the sake of conversation, we're not using the pedigree, we're using the pedigree-based formula and numbers. We're not using the embarkvet.com numbers, because those are genetic markers as done by a blood test or a cheek swab. They're not pedigree-based numbers, so those are much bigger numbers. So for the rest of this video, I'm only speaking in pedigree-based numbers by calculation, by formula, not testing a dog through genetic testing, okay?
Gotcha.
Now, what is the difference? The difference is that in the German Shepherd, for example, the average coefficient of inbreeding using Embark, not using this analysis. In other words, even if the two dogs are unrelated, but they're both German Shepherds, well, it's the same breed. So you're going to at least have a 20% coefficient of inbreeding using Embark. And the dogs could be unrelated. But because the same foundation dogs are common to all German Shepherds when the breed was founded, they're going to be related because you're breeding German Shepherds. So the number in Embark will be between 20% and 40%. Even if you take the Swiss Shepherd, the Berger Blanc, which is the French word for the Swiss Shepherd, or the White Shepherd. The White Shepherd has been a disallowed color in the German Shepherds for quite some time now. So they created another breed called the Berger Blanc because Switzerland is bordered by Italy and France. So you have what's called Swiss German because German is not harsh and guttural like Germany and Austria Austria. They have the Romance languages soften the German. So you have the Swiss German. So they're giving it a French name, even though it's a Swiss dog. It's a Swiss dog because you have the Swiss mountains all around Switzerland. So it borders Austria, where they speak, "Ja, jawohl, Herr Kommandant." They speak actual German, and then they have France, which for how French sounds, and Italian, "Come ti chiama," very soft Italian. Very different sounding language, right? So, so you have two soft languages with a very guttural language, and Swiss German they softened it. So the White Shepherd is called the Berger Blanc, the Swiss Shepherd. And even if you breed a German Shepherd to a Swiss Shepherd, still 20% coefficient of inbreeding.
Really?
Nothing you can do. Or let's say you have a breed which has a very small gene pool, like the Cumberland Spaniel. you're going to get 36 to 40% every time because it's a very small gene pool. Let's say you breed a modern breed, which is called the XL Bully, which is the Staffordshire Terrier and the American Bulldog mixed together in the 90s, and they created something called the XL Bully. And there are a lot of, they're not pit bulls, they're a different breed. Now, since the breed is only from the 90s, it's not a long time, you can have a high coefficient of inbreeding because they're trying to solidify the breed to make the traits repeatable. So you can have a lot of dogs with 36 to 40% coefficient of inbreeding because it's a new breed.
Right.
A very old breed like the German Shepherd, which has been around by 120 years, you're going to have 20% as your minimum using embark. So, and a small breed with a small gene pool like the Sussex Spaniel or the Cumberland Spaniel or the French Griffon, very small breed with a very small gene pool, they're going to have a 36 to 40% coefficient of inbreeding using embark. So understand this. The numbers I'm giving you are not embarkvet.com numbers. They're
Right.
not. I'm purely giving you mathematical analysis using Hardingman's numbers, not embark numbers. So there's no relationship in the numbers I'm giving you between the mathematical numbers, which I'm giving you how to plan a breeding, versus embark numbers, which are showing what the actual numbers are in that particular dog. And the average of the litter will be the pedigree number.
Right.
But any given dog may not be that number. I just want the audience to be super clear when I'm saying 6.25% and their dog measures 20% or 30%. They're like, what is this guy talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm strictly speaking in mathematical terms using the Hardingman method. I'm not using embark numbers, which in my breed is between 20 to 40%. Understand what I'm saying. They're not the same numbers. So people, please understand what I'm saying. Okay? Okay. Now that I got that disclaimer out of the way,
Yeah.
let me go back. Let me go
Hey,
back.
you
Now,
got to make it clear. You got to
you
make
got to be very clear when you're dealing with
Mhm.
numbers because people are going to say, what is this guy talking about? This guy doesn't
Right.
make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to be very clear what numbers I'm talking about. Okay.
Right.
So we're going to talk about prepotent and non-prepotent combination. So 2-2 half siblings. So this is inbreeding. This is not line breeding. Highly prepotent. In other words, if you have an outcome from a half sibling mating, you're definitely passing that common male 100% of the time. So the outcome of this inbreeding, when mated to a female with a low, in other words, let's say you have a dog with a 40, again, using embark, not using pedigree, but using embark. Let's say you have a dog with a 40% coefficient of inbreeding. And you have a female in your stable, as they say, with a 3.6 coefficient of inbreeding, let's say. Is that a female that you want or don't want in the breeding program? It's a female you definitely want because that highly inbred male will use that female as a vessel for his characteristics. In other words, a female which is a low coefficient of inbreeding is like gold when you're trying to pass a prepotent male through her. But if she has a high coefficient herself on her ancestors and her family tree, and he's a high coefficient from his family tree, now you got two fighting sets of genes because she's prepotent and he's prepotent. And now you might get what's called a nick when you get two inbred lines crossing each other. With respect to each other, they are now cross. But that might cause a nick, which is favorable, or it might not cause a nick. So if you want to pass a specific line, and you really want to, create a prepotent male. There's a couple of ways of doing that. I'll explain that. And mate him to a lightly or open pedigree female of good type and good character. I'm not saying she should be a crappy dog. I'm saying she doesn't have inbreeding in her. And she becomes a vessel for his characteristics. So a female with a low inbreeding coefficient, when bred to a highly inbred male, is pure gold. You're creating a mechanism to pass him through her.
Okay.
But if she has a lot of inbreeding in herself, her genes of her ancestors and his genes of his ancestors, provided they're not the same, they're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not getting characteristics of either set of dogs,
Right.
which was your goal.
Right.
So let's keep going. So half sibling inbreeding is highly prepotent at a 50% coefficient of relationship. 2-3 half uncle to niece, or the flip. 3-2 half um, nephew to aunt is a 37.5% COR, also highly prepotent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's also prepotent? 3-3 half first cousins. Now, why do I say half and not full? Because to be first cousins fully, you have to have both grandparents out of 4 be the same, not one grandparent out of 4 be the same. So let me show that. You can still see my screen, right? Or
I
not?
can.
Okay.
I can see it.
I'm going to minimize this screen for a second, and I'm going to bring up my own dogs, and I'm going to show how that works in a practical case, okay? Can everybody
Mm-hmm.
see my website and my screen?
Oh yeah, we can see it.
Okay, all right. Let me bring up the way this works in the practical example so people can follow it. So I'm going to
Nice
click male.
website, Alexander.
Say one more time.
Nice website.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. So now look at this dog, Yukon Van Perot. All right, now I'm line breeding on him. So the first thing you have to understand is, well, before we talk about 3-3, let's go back a step. And why are we choosing this dog? So he was the 3-time Bundesprogen competitor. In other words, the German Shepherd National Championship. He was an Schutzen 3 dog and FH2. FH is a tracking title. So FH1 is like 1,200 steps, and the track is age 1 hour. FH2 is like, I think it's 1,800 steps if I remember right, meaning that the track is age 3 hours before the dog comes out, and then he has to find the scent of who walked that scent, footstep by footstep. His show score is SG, Sehr good, and he received a KKL1, Core Class 1. Now, what does all that mean? So let's break that down really quick, because it's worth, when you're reading a pedigree, you want to understand all these words. So first, I'm going to bring up what's called a breed survey. Can everybody see this? I hope this picture comes up right. Hold on. If it doesn't, I'm going to bring it up with a different tool. Okay. Can everybody see this picture or no?
Oh yeah, we can see it. Yeah, this is
Everybody
showing
sees
really good. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because sometimes I'm not sure if this thing is locking up or not. All right. So the breed survey means KKL1 is strongly recommended for breeding. KKL2 is recommended for breeding. Now they don't do 1 and 2 anymore. They just do KKL. So a dog below KKL is rated SG, sehr gut. In other words, very good in German. But that's like a C. KKL2 is like a B, and KKL1 is like an A. So a dog which is KKL1 is like, A, yeah, this dog is definitely going to make an improvement in the breed. KKL2, yeah, he's a good dog. You should breed to him. SG is like, he might be a good dog to breed to. Kind of like that, okay?
Right.
So the rating changed between 2012. After that, they just do KKL1 now. They don't do 1 and 2. So the first thing is, what is the breed survey? That was done by a Kormeister, and that's what that means, okay? The next thing to understand in a dog, because it's important to understand some of these titles, is the health titles of a dog.
Right.
Now, there's 3 systems: the OFA system, the SV system. SV stands for the Vrisch Schäferhund, or the German Shepherd Felix Society, and the FCI system. The FCI stands for the Frederic Clone International. What the FCI is that in America you have the AKC, in England you have the UKC, in Russia you have the RFK, in Holland you have the NHTSB. So every AKC of the world, in other words, every organization that registers dogs, of every country, then trees up to the FCI, which is the master organization of all the other organizations below it. In other words, the FCI is the European boss over the other registries of each respective countries. That's how you're able to transfer American pedigrees to Europe or European registries to America. You take the foreign-born dog, which will have a local country registry, let's say in Holland, dog will have an NHTSB number. And then you transfer that number to the FCI, then the FCI will transfer that number to the AKC. In other words, it's a means of exchange. Otherwise, you can't transfer pedigree information, because how do you trust the pedigree is not false, right? How you know it's not hung papers? So you have to certify the pedigree. Who does that? The body that controls all the registries of the world. So this is the Fédérie Cologne Internationale. My French sucks. So, but that's what the FCI stands for. Now,
Gotcha.
let's understand this a little bit. Notice you have the score: excellent under OFA, normal under SV, and A1 under FCI. Good is normal. It's A2 under FCI. Fair, which is the border of breeding or not breeding, is still considered normal by the SV, but considered B1 by the FCI. Borderline, in other words, this dog has dysplasia. They call it fast normal, B2 under the FCI. Mild dysplasia, nicht zugelassen. I don't know how to pronounce it. C. Moderate dysplasia, mittler, D. Severe dysplasia, E. And then you have the same thing for the hips. Normal is A1, moderate osteoarthritis, ED1. Okay, so now in the dog, notice this dog, it says SZ, and then it has a ZW number. So if you look up, now what does that mean? The ZW number is very important. Let me take back a step, and we're going to show you this dog. We're going to go to the working dog database. Okay, working dog database. Okay. All right, I'm gonna search without logging in because this will take too long.
Okay.
So let me just search for the dog without logging in, because as a member I have more privileges than I don't as a non-member. But for what I'm trying to demonstrate, it doesn't really matter.
Gotcha.
So let me just bring up this dog really quick. Okay, notice the same dog, Yukon Van Perot, the one I'm having on my website. So before you line breed in a specific dog, he must be a superior dog. Otherwise, why the hell are you line breeding on him? So now, notice the number here, HDZW86. See that? Wait, this thing is, it's refreshing the screen.
Okay.
I don't know why it's jumping around a little. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh,
Notice it says KKL1 HDZW86, right? Now, can everybody see this screen, or it's timing out?
No, we can see it.
Okay. So the thing to understand about the ZW number is that the Germans are very engineering-oriented people. They're like very analytical. And what you have to understand is, let's say my particular dog is a great hips dog. Like his hips are perfect, right? But he comes from a family of crappy dogs which have a lot of hip problems. Now, people think when they breed him, they are reproducing him. But they're not reproducing him. They're reproducing the average of his family. So if you're breeding a dog which has good hips, but all his brothers, sisters, and relatives have crappy hips, guess what? You're not going to develop good hips even though he has good hips. He's an outlier. He's not going to pass good hips. So what you do is you breed him to a lot of females and you get their hip scores. And there's a statistical tool that they have, and they put the number as a ZW score. Anything below 120 is a good hips dog. Anything above 120 is a shitty hips dog. Pardon my French. So now, if you look at this dog, his father before him is Karn van Vengelhoff. His mother is Asher van Perot. Notice it says HD normal frei. Frei means free of hip dysplasia. In German, frei, free. In other words, free of hip dysplasia. The mother, HD normal, free of hip dysplasia. His father before, Karn van Vengelhoff. Notice it says HD normal, frei, free of hip dysplasia. This dog, Lola van Vengelhoff, HD normal, frei, free of hip dysplasia. This dog, HD normal, frei, free of hip dysplasia. this dog, Frila van Ruben. Oh my God, what a hard name to pronounce. Ruben Noonen. Free of hip dysplasia. Go back. These are the great grandparents. Every dog here, every dog had a hip score and no problems with the hips. If you look at his litter, his ancestors that he sired, I'm not going to do that with you live, but
Okay.
basically because this site is slow to load.
Okay.
But everything he sired produced good hips too. So his family is all good hip dogs, as you can see, right?
Mhm.
And everything he threw always threw good hips. So his score is well below 120. It's 86. So when you're looking at a dog and a pedigree and you want to use it for breeding, it's a German Shepherd, which is prone to hip dysplasia, always make sure the ZW number is below 120. In fact, the lower the number, the better. I
Mhm.
don't think it goes below 78. So anytime you have a number below 120, that dog will throw good hips. If a dog is 120 or slightly above 120, you got to watch out. That dog is likely to throw bad hips. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing you must understand in a pedigree. Okay, how good is the dog's health in terms of what he produces. Notice his core class 1, you know, uh, excellent for breeding, but his show score by a show judge, which don't evaluate working logs very nicely, was only SG, zero good. So sometimes you see the dog's name will be like V, Wukan van Perot, or you will see SG, Wukan van Perot. Sometimes the show score precedes the dog's name. Like you'll see, for example, uh, a dog with these are all working dogs. You're not going to see V or a lot of titles like that in front of working dogs. So the show judges don't score working dogs fairly. So this dog was scored SG by the show judge. But
Mhm.
the working judge, the Kormeister, scores him at KKL1. So how the hell he scored ASG by the show judge, but was scored KKL1 by the working judge? It doesn't make sense,
Mhm.
But that shows you that there's a unfairness in the scoring system. But anyhow, now, now that being said, so what's the dog's title? It says here. You can use Google Translate to translate German into English.
Mhm.
The dog had pronounced courage, small size, uh, good for the middle. In other words, the dog was the German national champion 3 times in a row, 2008, 2010, 2012. I mean, you don't get to be the entire champion of all of Germany unless you're a freaking fantastic dog. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
this dog is the grandfather of my female and male. Now, all right, now that I've explained that dog, okay, there's some videos of him working. This is his great grandfather and all that jazz. Now, how does he relate to my current found dog? So now, if you look under male grandparents, his son, Karl van Brunderwert, is PH2 KKL1. So he also threw an excellent confirmation score of KKL1. In other
Mhm.
words, his anatomical structure is ideal, KKL1, not SG. Okay.
Right.
PH2 means Polithund 2 because this is in Holland. This is not in England. So first he was KNPV PH1, Polithund 1. Then he became KNPV Polithund 2. And this is object guarding, where they, pretend somebody wants to take an object away from the dog. Dog is going to guard an object. Now,
Right.
a German Shepherd participating against Malinois in Holland, it has to be a superior dog to
Oh
compete
yeah.
against 250 Malinois in that same competition. You know what I mean? Now,
Mhm.
this dog is the son of Yukon van Perot. Look at his pedigree. See his father, Yukon?
Mhm.
His mother is Auchi, Schliffschlasche, which I'm not going to go into that. Okay. So you see the sire. Bandit was the father of Karn. Karn was the father of Yukon. Yukon was the father of Karl. We see
Mhm.
that male line because line breeding is done on the male line, so I'm not focusing on the female. And now, so if you look at my female dog Bailey, notice her father is Karl.
Oh yeah.
His
Okay.
father before him is Yukon, right? So what is
Mhm.
Yukon with respect to Bailey? 3 generations back, right? One,
Right.
2, 3, right?
Mhm.
Okay, we got that relationship. Yukon is 3 generations. So he's her grandfather, right?
Mhm.
3, 3. Everybody follow that line, right?
Yes, sir.
Now we're gonna go to my old dog Jake, which passed away, unfortunately.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good dog. I have his OFA numbers. All my dogs are certified in terms of,
Oh yeah,
I don't mess around. Now,
nice.
notice Jake, his father was Born van Volsfried, whose he's the son of Yukon van Perot. So through a different male born, he has the same grandfather as Bailey. That means Born and Caro are half brothers. They share the same father but different moms. In other words, if I click on Born van Volsfried, the father of Jake, his mom is Frenzy van Roergem, the female 2008 Bundesprogen champion. Okay. His father is Yukon. So that makes Born, the son of Yukon, and Caro, the son of Yukon, different moms, notice different moms, have brothers, right? Right?
Right.
Now, what does that make their kids? Well, Lucy is the female puppy I kept out of Jake and Bailey. So notice the pedigree here. Notice that through Jake, he goes to Born, which goes to Yukon. So Yukon is her great grandfather. It was Jake's
Right.
grandfather, right? Now through Bailey, the mother, through Caro also goes back to Yukon. So you see, Yukon is twice. He is here. So he's the father of Caro, which is the father of Bailey, which is the mother of Lucy. And Jake is also the grandson, but through a different. So in other words, Born and Caro are half brothers. See, Born and Caro are half brothers. Their kids, which is Jake and Bailey, are therefore half first cousins. That's what I mean by half.
Yeah.
Notice
Go back
Yukon
to
is you're going to Yukon only. You're not going to another grandparent. So Yukon is the father of Caro, who's the father of Bailey, and Yukon is the father of Born, which is the father of Jake. So notice that Lucy, if I breed her, will be prepotent. Why? She'll have Yukon twice through her parents. Now, so that's how that lines up. Now, if you look at this dog, I'm not going to be very brief at that when I advertise my dogs. I'm just explaining.
Okay.
If you look at Una van Voltehovie, very hard to pronounce. I contact Rick Warburgen in Holland. This is him at 10 months. This is him as a puppy, basically.
Nice.
And this dog is the fourth generation of. Now notice, Karel van Brandenburg. Remember Bailey's father?
Yep.
Karel is the Bailey's father. He is the grandfather of Roche van Voltehovie. And Roche van Voltehovie is the father of Uno. So Uno is 4 generations back on Caro, but Lucy is 3 generations back on Caro. See, he's 1, 2, 3. So Caro is Lucy's grandfather. See, 3 generations, 1, 2, 3.
Right.
But Uno is 4 generations on Caro. Caro is in the 4th position in his pedigree, but in the 3rd position in Lucy's pedigree. So if I breed them together, I get what's called a 3-4 line breeding. Okay, now we're going to demonstrate that. Now, and that's exactly what I plan to do. So in other words, okay, I'm going to go back. So now notice how I'm maintaining a common ancestor, but I'm not breeding close because he's back in time. And we're going to do the math. We're going to show how that works out. Now, so getting back to the math very briefly, and I'm going to go back. I don't want to bore people. So half first cousins, I just showed you how that works in Lucy, right? Her
Right.
parents are the same grandfather, right? So
Right.
this would be prepotent. I just showed you how if Lucy's bred to Uno, that would be 3-4. That would be not prepotent. Too far back. 4-4. Second cousins. Oh, this is putting everything on one line. I didn't realize I was doing all that. Can everybody see what I'm typing at the bottom, though?
Yep.
Okay, second cousins, not prepotent. In other words, it's not enough to make the dog prepotent. In other words, the number is too small. Remember I did the fractions earlier?
Yep, we do.
So the math is not giving you a big enough percentage where the dog is enough influence. Third cousins, not prepotent. Now, so the question becomes, okay, so we know what's prepotent. In other words, this is how tight the line breeding or inbreeding is. There's tight inbreeding and line breeding, and there's not tight. So this is non-tight. This above is tight. People mean what is tight and not tight. This is mathematically what is tight and not tight. So tight inbreeding, line breeding will create prepotency. Non-type will not, but it's a stepping stone in a two-step process. I'm about to demonstrate that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So now everybody see which numbers create tight versus non-tight, right? Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay, now, so what does this pedigree mean when I'm showing this pedigree? Hold on, let me get the right pedigree up because I want to make sure everybody's understanding the right pedigree. All right, look at this pedigree here. This is an unusual looking pedigree. That's why I'm bringing it up. This dog is Grace von der Tufschlachle. Hard to pronounce, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's rated SG, sehr good, in the show judge. Okay, so her confirmation was rated SG, not KKL 1 or 2, but one step below. Okay, she's Schutzen 2 because remember, in 2012, the names changed from Schutzen to IPO. That changed in 2012. So she's still using the old naming system, Schutzen 2, not IPO 2. Okay, notice her registration number is SZ. That means she's a German dog, not an American dog. An American dog will have an DN number, not an SZ number. Notice her hip rating, HDA normal, A1. Okay, that's the highest. Notice her ZW score, 93. Remember I told you anything below 120 is a good hips dog?
That's right, yeah.
And she's normal under hip, under elbows. So you have to know how to read a pedigree. So this is all important information. So this dog has really good hips. She has a very low score, ZW only 93. Now, so this is a jazzy looking pedigree. You see 455-45, 344, 555 three times, right? I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Why are we seeing all these numbers? And what does all this mean? Because why would somebody do this, right? I mean, this was clearly planned. This was not like by accident. So now, here's what it means. I'm going to show it to you, and hopefully everybody can follow along what I do. Okay? Everybody still see the screen where I'm doing math, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to do double first cousins. Everybody see double first cousins?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm not a fast typist.
Take your time.
All right. Everybody see what I just did? So 1/2 cubed 4 times is the same thing as 1/2 squared 2 times. In other words, 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 is 4/8. 4/8 is 1/2, which is 50%. Well, 1/2 squared is 1/4 plus 1/2 squared is 1/4. So that's 2/4, which is also 50%. So being double first cousins is the same thing as being half siblings. I just
Right.
demonstrated it to you. In other
Right.
words, a breeding which looks like this. In other words, double first cousins on the father and double first cousins on the mother is the same thing. So if you see a pedigree, the number 3 4 times, it's the same thing as 2 2 times.
Okay.
It's the same relationship. In other words, double first cousins is the same thing as half siblings. Now the same thing works for double second cousins. If you see 4 4 dash 4 4, it's the same as 3 3. Does everybody see that?
Yep. Sure do.
Double second cousins is the same thing. Double second cousins equals first cousins. Now, if you want to be convinced, let's do it. 1/2 to the 4th plus 1/2 to the 4th plus the same thing again equals 1/16 plus 1/16 plus 1/16 plus 1/16, which is 4/16, which is 1/4, which is 25%. But if I do 1/2 cubed plus 1/2 cubed, equals 1/8 plus 1/8, which equals 2/8, which equals 1/4, which equals also 25%.
Yeah.
So now double second cousin. So 4 4, the number 4 4 times is equivalent to the number 3 2 times. So double second cousins is the same thing as first cousins.
Gotcha.
Now let's do this again. It works every time you do it. Now we're going to do double third cousins. Double third cousins is the same thing as second cousins. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to invite the viewer to do it themselves. I showed them how to do it. But basically, it's 1/2 to the 5th plus 1/2 to the 5th plus 1/2 to the 5th plus 1/2 to the 5th. So doing 5 5 5 5 4 times is the same thing as doing 4 4 only themselves. So by doing this, you're moving the ancestor up in the pedigree. In other words, he's a 4-time great 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 grandfather. It's almost like he is a great great grandfather. Or, in other words, so if I do 3 3 3 3, that's the same grandfather 4 times, right? But it's like he's a father. So this makes a grandfather equal to a father. 4 4 4 4 makes a great grandfather equal to a grandfather.
And
Five,
Alexander,
five. Yeah, go ahead.
when you
It's
mentioned
breaking up a
you
little bit.
bringing, oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better now. It was a little bit breaking up. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. When you mentioned bringing a common ancestor from the back to the front, you also
Right.
this would also mean that he'll be a better version of himself because of selection
Correct.
through time.
Correct.
Okay. Hmm.
What what you're doing is I think I've illustrated my point right now. So with the person real famous, I'm waiting for this thing to load. So
Okay.
what this person was really impressed. Well, this dog was really impressive. I mean, this is a real famous German Shepherd.
Hmm.
So these people took this dog, and he's in my female's pedigree too, by the way.
Hmm.
Yoshi. Now he's rated V, so his show rating was a V, not an SG. See that?
Right.
Yoshi von der Dolvis, hard to pronounce. He's a Schützen 3 BSP Bundesprogen German national champion in 1994. LGA, this is a regional core class 1. Anatomical structure was right on the money. And he was born in 1991. So this dog is gone a long time now. But what I'm
Hmm.
saying is this dog is really influential now. So no common ancestors because he he had no common ancestors. Well, this dog is an East German dog, Troll von Naschkraft. So they bred an East German dog. Yeah. Anyhow, now what the breeder of this dog, what's the face of this dog? Grace von Tufschlachli, if I'm pronouncing that right. They concentrated on these famous dogs: Yoshi, Troll von Bosen Nachbekraft, hard to pronounce, guys, and Askia von Froschgraben. Now notice these names: BSP, BSP, SG, BSP, BSP. These were the German national champions, not just like a local club trial or like a regional trial. The dog won all of Germany in 1982. This dog won all of Germany, 200 dogs. This dog was
Wow.
number one in 1994. So these are not just any dogs. Weiss Sieger, 1994. This dog was like the dog. Now, so this female, what's her name? Grace von Tuschflachli. My tongue is going to break pronouncing this. so what they did was they made Yoshi a grandfather on the father. They made Yoshi a grandfather on the father. See, 3 generations back on the father.
Hmm.
But he's a great grandfather twice on the mother. In other words, the female, which is the mother of that dog up here, right?
Hmm.
In her pedigree, she's the product of a second cousin mating, 4-4. But the father of this female, that dog was a grandsire. So they took a male where Yoshi was a grandsire and bred him to a female, which is the product of a second cousin mating. So remember I said 4-4 is not enough to accomplish prepotency in itself, right?
Exactly. Right.
But that's a stepping stone toward the next step, which is a
Hmm.
3-4-4. In other words, a 4-4 by itself is useless. That dog is not prepotent. But
Hmm.
you take this dog and you breed him to a dog where that dog is closer in time. Now you've combined him several times. Now look at how big the number is.
Right.
6.40%. Remember that the big number is 12.5. So in other words, the scale is not 0 to 100. The scale is 0 to 12.5, right? So on a small scale, 6.25 is a halfway point between 0 and 12.5, right? So
Hmm.
this is a big number for inbreeding coefficient
Right.
because remember the scale is not 100. So it's 6.40%, but the scale is not 0 to 100. The scale is 0 to 12.5, right? Because 12.5 is half siblings, right?
Right.
So the scale is smaller, right? So this is not a small number on that scale, right? Now, look what they did here, 6.05%, nearly the same percent, right?
Hmm.
Six and change, right? Now,
Right.
notice what they did. Troll von der Bosen Nachbachkraft. Very hard to pronounce. Okay, this page is locking up. I'm gonna click wait. Okay, now I'm not gonna click on it because my page is locking up. But notice what they did. 455-4-5. This dog is not influential as a 5-5. That's nothing. It's hardly anything. But they repeated him 1, 2, 3, 4. They repeated him 5 times. And because they took a great grandfather and a great great grandfather, but they repeated him so many times, they made him influential and they increased. In other words, they took his genes and they repeated them until you accumulate him to the point where now he is influential, even though he's far back in the pedigree. In other words, by himself, 5 generations back, his influence would be small. But by accumulating his blood so many times, his influence becomes quite big. And the same thing with this dog. Remember I told you 4 5s is the same thing as 2 4s?
Right.
Remember? Well, this is nearly 4 5s. This is 3 5s. So even though he's a great, great, great grandfather, it's almost like he's a great, great grandfather. In other words, it's almost, even though he's 5 generations back, it's almost like he's 4 generations back. So this process, guys, I'm going to go back to video so you can see me. Stop sharing. So this process, guys, there's 3 ways of inbreeding and line breeding. 3 ways. Let me explain. The first way is inbreeding directly. It's a quick, but it's risky. What's your goal in inbreeding a dog? You're trying to concentrate his traits. You're trying to make the dog which comes out be as much of a clone, not quite a clone, but as much of a clone of the dog you're inbreeding upon. In other words, if I breed father to daughter, she's 75% him, right? Now, do I have a lot of homogeneous genes? Hell yeah, that's the closest you can get, pretty much, parent to child, right? Now, are there a lot of other dogs? No, the mother is reduced to being 25% if the father is 75%, right? So you've cut down the blood of the mother, but you've increased the blood of the father. Let's say you do grandfather to granddaughter. This is inbreeding, not line breeding. Okay. He as a father is 50%. He as a grandfather is 12.5%. 50% plus 12.5% is 62.5%. A lot, right? A lot. Now, will the dog be prepotent? Yes. Will the dog possibly have a lot of diseases? Yes. So you're trying to strike a balance between creating a dog which is prepotent so he can pass himself, but you're trying to avoid disease. That's very hard to do. So when you're creating a breed, remember, we're not creating a breed anymore. The breed already exists. So if I was creating a breed, I would inbreed because I have to create a breed. But we're not trying to create a breed. The German Shepherd already exists. The Cane Corso already exists. The American Bulldog already exists. No matter what you're doing, the dog already exists. Now, so if you're creating a breed, you would breed, let's say, a father to 2 different females. You create half siblings as a consequence of that mating. You would take a female of that half sibling mating and breed it back to that father again. That's creating a breed. That's not creating a line. So the people have to understand the difference between creating a line versus creating a breed. Now, well, if the techniques are the same, what's the difference, right? People are like, what are you saying? You're saying the same thing. Like, what's the difference between creating a breed and creating a line? So let me explain, because people have to understand how a breed is created versus a mix, and how would you create a line? Okay. So let's, and then I'm going to go back to the 3 methods. Let me just take a side step here, and I'm going to go back to the 3 methods. So let's say I'm going to create a breed called the Golden Doodle. Now, I'm not a fan of the Golden Doodle. I think those people are just unethical, because if you want poodle characteristics, just get a poodle. What are you trying to create? This yuppie designer breed? I mean, it's not a breed, it's a mix. But let's say we were creating a breed and we're going to be ethical about it, to really create a breed, not a mix. Okay. How would you do it? Or let's say, forget about Golden Doodle. let's say I'm going to mix the Cane Corso with a American Bulldog. I want to create a new breed. Call it some new name, whatever you would call it. Now, when I breed a Cane Corso to an American Bulldog, do I have a new breed? No, I have a mix, right? Now, so let's say I breed a male Cane Corso to a female American Bulldog. The puppies come out 50-50. If I breed a female mixed dog of the two mixes, and I breed American Bulldog to Cane Corso mix, and I breed again to an American Bulldog, now in that mating, I am 3/4 American Bulldog, but only 1/4 Cane Corso. I'm no longer an equal mix in the next generation, right? Or if I breed a half breed, in other words, half Cane Corso, half American Bulldog, and or a Rottweiler and a Cane Corso, whatever. In other words, forget about the breed. I'm just explaining the concept here. Okay. Now, if I bred a Cane Corso to an American Bulldog, that first generation is 50-50 each dog. If I bred that female back to her father, which is a Cane Corso, I would have a Cane Corso. I would not have an American Bulldog because the genetics of the Cane Corso would dominate at 75%, right? So I can't do it that way, can I? Because if you're going to breed to one member of one breed or the other, I no longer am equally presenting both breeds in my outcome, right? So I can't breed a Cane Corso American Bulldog mix back to the father because he's a Cane Corso. The puppies will become out 75% Cane Corso and only 1/4 American Bulldog. So I can't create a breed that way, can I? Right?
Yeah.
So what would I do? I would create colony A and I would create colony B. Okay, let's say. And we can do this with the Golden Retriever and Poodle mix. We can do this with the Cane Corso and American Bulldog mix. You can take whatever you like. The concept is the same. So let's stick with what we just described. American Bulldog and Cane Corso. In colony A, I would take a Cane Corso male and I would breed him to 2 American Bulldog females. And I have half siblings where the Cane Corso male is the common ancestor, and I breed those half siblings together. Now the puppies which come out are primarily Cane Corso. That's colony A. In colony B, I do the opposite. I take an American Bulldog male and I breed him to 2 Cane Corso females. Now I take those half siblings in colony B and I breed them together. Now those puppies are primarily American Bulldog. Then I take the puppies which are the result of the half sibling mating of colony A and the puppies of colony B. In the colony A, the Corso was the common father, 2 American Bulldog females. In colony B, the American Bulldog was the common father and the females were Cane Corsos, right? Now I create, and the half siblings in each colony would bred to each other initially. Then I take the outcome of colony A and colony B and then I breed them together. Now I'm maintaining 50-50 of both breeds in the 4th generation.
Okay.
That's how you start off a breed.
Right.
You have to create 2 separate colonies where the male of one breed is the common ancestor on this side, the male of the opposite breed, but the females of this partnership are the same breed as this dog. In other words, the females with the Cane Corso are American Bulldogs, and but the male is an American Bulldog. And the opposite, the Cane Corso is the male here, but the American Bulldog was bred to 2 Cane Corso females. So now I'm creating an equal percentage of both sides as I combine it. That's how I would create a breed. Once I have the second pass, then I would breed back to either the Cane Corso sire or the Bulldog sire, which is now a great grandfather by that point. And I would then accentuate which traits fit my program, whatever my criteria was. Now,
Gotcha.
So back breeding, which is what I'm describing, you create half siblings of 2 different colonies, of 2 different mixes, breed them to each other, then breed them colony A to colony B, then breed back to the common male of either side, whichever one you want to.
Right.
So this is called back breeding. Back breeding is breeding like a 5/8 dog. Father to his own daughter, that's a 5/8 dog. Then breeding to him again, that's a 7/8 dog. That's bag breeding. That's not line breeding. People confuse bag breeding with line breeding. I want to make that clear. Bag breeding is not line breeding. It's just bag breeding. Now, people also confuse inbreeding with line breeding. Half sibling mating is inbreeding.
Mm-hmm.
Father to daughter is inbreeding. Grandparent to grandchild is inbreeding. Because you're breeding in the immediate family.
Right. But
I'm
let me
not
ask you
breeding.
this, Alexander.
Yeah.
So what is the closest form? What is the most potent form of
The
inbreeding?
closest is 2-3
2, 3.
brackets formula, uncle to niece.
Okay.
Because if you look at it mathematically, which I was trying to show, it's kind of boring to follow fractions. I hope people are not bored too much. I'm not trying to bore people, but I'm trying to explain it where the math jumps out at you. At least I hope it does.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it mathematically, right? Now, if I'm breeding half siblings, I'm at 50% common ancestor, right? He's a common father to two different females, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's my coefficient of inbreeding? 12.5%. What's my coefficient of relationship? 50%. Quite high, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now I do 2-3 or 3-2. So this was 2-2 at the same generation, but 2-3. This dog is 2, but this dog is one spot lower. He's a 3. Now, by moving one dog a generation back, he's a grandson here or a granddaughter, and he's a son here. In other words, let's say the granddaughter is the female and the male is the son. So this is a son of that dog, and this is a granddaughter of that same dog.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not in this level, half siblings. This is one step below. Now, my coefficient of relationship goes from 50% to 37.5%. So I lowered my risk by 12.5%. 50% minus 37.5% is 12.5% less. Or if you're thinking in terms of COI, pedigree COI, not embark COI,
Mm-hmm.
for people to get that straight.
Right.
Now, so I went from half siblings, COI, not COR,
Mm-hmm.
from 12.5% to 9.63%. I dropped 3% in COI. In COR, coefficient of relationship, I went from 50% to 37.5%. I'm still maintaining prepotency because the percent is still high. 37.5% is pretty high, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not at the danger zone of 50%. In other words, I'm striking a balance between inbreeding, which will definitely create prepotency, but has very high odds of creating disease. So I'm lowering the percentage, but still maintaining prepotency.
Right.
So the difference between a half sibling mating is that's 50%, but an uncle to niece or an aunt to nephew mating is 37.5%. I've dropped by 12.5%, but I'm still maintaining prepotency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 3-4, same concept, but just three generations here, 4 generations here. It's always, instead of 3-3, it's the same idea of taking this generation, but instead of breeding at this level, you're breeding it one step down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, 3-3 is first cousins. Okay. First cousins has a coefficient of inbreeding of 6.25%, has a coefficient of relationships of 25%. Pretty high. But by making it 3-4, I'm below. In other words, if you go too low, you go to 12.5% coefficient of relationship or only a 3% coefficient of inbreeding. It's not going to create prepotency. The dog will not pass himself.
Right.
But if I go too high, I might have disease because I've doubled up deleterious recessive genes.
Mm-hmm.
So the game is to mathematically balance the numbers. So if you look at what this breeder was doing, I'm going back to this dog.
Okay.
Oh, I'm on the wrong dog. The one I just showed you where it was multiple, okay. So the dog, look at what this guy was doing with this dog. Can you guys see this dog?
Not yet.
Knox Von. Oh, it didn't show the screen?
Not
It
yet.
didn't
Did you
jump.
hit
Oh,
present?
I didn't. Oh, I have to reshare the screen. Okay, my bad. Anyhow, I'm going to just not share the screen because it causes the screen to practically lock up a little bit.
Oh,
So
okay.
software glitch. I'll explain it verbally and I'll go back to the screen in a minute. because I want to make sure people can follow it verbally also, because people looking at numbers, it doesn't resonate in their mind. People getting a verbal explanation, I hope it resonates a little more. Now, so what's the idea of line breeding? The idea is to create prepotency where the characteristics and phenotype is preserved, but not do it so close that you have a high chance of genetic diseases. You're trying to create, like, where am I? Here's risk, but high prepotency. Here's less risk, but no prepotency. Now, where do I strike the balance, right? Now, in Germany, they used to allow 2-3 or 3-2, same thing, matings. They now, the closest the SV, the Verishufferhund, the German Shepherd Felix Society now allows is 3-3. So as far as the Germans are concerned, they don't allow uncle to niece or aunt to nephew mating anymore. They only allow first cousins. That's the closest the Germans allow the pedigree. In other words, if you have a dog which is a 2-3, you can't register it in Germany. They won't let you. So the closest the Germans let you do it is 3-3, no more. Now, is this enough to create prepotency? Well, if you look at my dog Jake and Bailey, when I bred them together, they were 3-3 on Yukon. I showed you the pedigree. Did the puppies come out the same? No. So was it enough to create prepotency? No. So then, what was the point? What did I accomplish, right? Here's what I accomplished. Let me show you how we get around this problem without breeding too close. Watch how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me see if I do it right. So I'm going to do a two-stepper. Select tab, window, entire screen. I'm going to do the entire screen.
Okay.
So that it's easy for me to switch and you guys can follow. Can you guys see or not yet?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, you guys are good? Okay, now I'm going to show you what I plan to do. Hopefully it comes out fine, okay? I'm going to copy and paste this name because it's hard to memorize the spelling. It's Dutch, so it's hard to.
Right.
Okay, now we're going to go to pedigree database. And in the pedigree database, for those who don't know, this is a good resource for you guys to use. It says mating outcome. You guys see that? Mating outcome? For those who haven't seen it before, I don't know if most people probably here have seen it before. So we're just going to wait for this to load. Just give it a second. It's very slow for some reason. I'm going to give it a second here. Okay.
Very good.
You guys see it? Or okay, so the sire will be Una van Voltahovi, and the female will be my dog Lucy van Gonta Haus. This is a mating I have planned for November. So if anybody are interested in puppies, contact me. a little plug there. You know.
There you go. You deserve it.
Okay, so now, so look what happens in this pedigree. Now, so this is what I want you to understand this outcome really well, because we're going to take this step as an intermediate step, and then we're going to take another step as a consequence. So look what happens. Notice Karel van Brandevert, Lucy's grandfather, is Uno's great-grandfather. So you see how he's 4 generations on the male, Uno? Remember I showed you the picture before?
Yeah.
But it's her grandfather.
Okay.
So it's 4-3. So the inbreeding becomes 4.83%. Now, as an indirect consequence, because Karel is the common grandfather, his parents, Auchi and Yukon, become, you know, the tab stop. See, this is the tab stop. You know, the tabbed in. In other words, they're because you're inbreeding on Karel, you're therefore inbreeding on his parents. You know, that's what I'm trying to say, right? So when you have a tab stop, that's the indirect goal, not the direct goal. Okay. Here it's the direct goal. Here it's the indirect goal. Okay. Just so you guys understand what the tab stop numbers mean versus the non-tab stop numbers. Okay. Now, so as a result of breeding on Karel, we're breeding on his mom, Auchi, and we're breeding on his dad, Yukon, right? Now, but notice something very interesting. Notice that on Auchi, it's a 5-4. But on Yukon, it's a 5-4-4. He's twice in the fourth generation because she is 3-3. She's not just a granddaughter, she's a granddaughter twice on Yukon. Okay? Not once. In other words, through the mother, it's a granddaughter of this bitch, Ouchie. Grandfather, it's 5-4. He's twice 5. See that? Now, his father before him, Yukon's father is Karn, is 555, which is almost the same thing as 4-4-4. In other words, remember how I showed you that 4 times the number is like moving him up one generation?
That's right.
So,
yeah.
in a sense, Karo, the grandfather, is almost equal to his great-grandfather. Remember, Karn is the father of Yukon, and Yukon is the father of Karo. So this is the great-grandfather, 5 generations back. But notice we have him 2.93. Even though he's 5 generations back, we repeated him several times. Now, I take the puppy out of this mating, right? You see that? Where Yukon is 5-4-4. Now, who will that puppy be with respect to Bailey? Well, Bailey is Lucy's mom. Okay, let's look at it that way from a picture's point of view. So here's Lucy. Okay, Bailey is her mom and Karo is her father, right? So Karo is in the 3rd position through the mom, Bailey's mom, you see? And Yukon is, of course, Karo's father, right? But now through the dad, Jake, through his father born, Yukon is again. So Karo doesn't appear on this side, but he appears on this side, right? So Yukon appears here, and he appears here again. Now, but because Karo is also in, if we're gonna change the picture to be 4 generations rather than 3 generations, you will see the effect that. So this dog Sita van Voltenhoven, she goes back to Karn through a different family tree. So if you click on her, Sita, Uno's mom, okay, you will see that she goes back to Karn also. See, here's Karn. So instead of going through Karn through Yukon, she goes through Karn through Orlo, Van Nieuwenklaus. Okay,
right.
So she goes through. So now we're taking this grandparent Karn through this son, not Yukon, which was not so famous, and this dog and so forth. Now, so you see Silva, Uno's mom, goes back to Karn through a different line. Now, so that's step 1. We're breeding Uno to Lucy. Now, Bailey has a different daughter by being bred to Jago. Okay, so if we go to a different female, this thing is so slow, I'm not gonna bother because.
And that wraps up another episode of NWA Conning Corsos. Thank you for being a part of our Conning Corso community. Remember, you can stay connected with us beyond the podcast. Find us on all major media platforms by searching for NWA Conning Corsos. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, just hit that follow button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we'd love to hear from you. Simply shoot us an email at nwaconningcorsos@gmail.com. And if you're a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address. For more resources, exclusive content, and links to all our social media profiles, visit our website at nwaconningcorsos.com. It's your go-to destination for everything dogs. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we can't wait to bring you more exciting episodes where we explore the fascinating world of dogs.